P.V. Narasimha Rao. Kamilaparthi Venkata Narasimha Rao Listen, 28 June 1921 – 23 December 2004, was an Indian lawyer and politician who served as the 9th Prime Minister of India from 1991 to 1996. His ascendancy to the prime ministership was politically significant in that he was the second holder of this office from a non-Hindi-speaking region and the first from South India. He led an important administration, overseeing a major economic transformation and several home incidents affecting national security of India. Rao, who held the industries portfolio, was personally responsible for the dismantling of the License Raj, as this came under the purview of the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, reversing the economic policies of Rajiv Gandhi's government. He is often referred to as the father of Indian economic reforms. Future Prime Ministers Atal Bihari Vajpayee and Manmohan Singh continued the economic reform policies pioneered by Rao's government. He employed Dr. Manmohan Singh as his finance minister to embark on historic economic transition. With Rao's mandate, Dr. Manmohan Singh launched India's globalization angle of the reforms that implemented the International Monetary Fund (IMF) policies to rescue the almost bankrupt nation from economic collapse. Rao was also referred to as Chanakya for his ability to steer economic and political legislation through the parliament at a time when he headed a minority government. According to a former foreign minister of India, Natwar Singh, unlike Nehru, his knowledge of Sanskrit was profound. Nehru had a temper, PV a temperament. His roots were deep in the spiritual and religious soil of India. He did not need to discover India. 11th President of India APJ Abdul Kalam described Rao as a patriotic statesman who believed that the nation is bigger than the political system. Kalam acknowledged that Rao in fact asked him to get ready for nuclear tests in 1996, but they were not carried out as government. The tests were later conducted by Vajpayee-led NDA government. In fact, Rao briefed Vajpayee on nuclear plans. Rao's term as prime minister was an eventful one in India's history. Besides marking a paradigm shift from the industrializing, mixed economic model of Jawaharlal Nehru to a market-driven one, his years as prime minister also saw the emergence of the Bharatiya Janata Party (BJP), a major right-wing party, as an alternative to the Indian National Congress, which had been governing India for most of its post-independence history. Rao's term also saw the destruction of the Babri mosque in Ayodhya in Uttar Pradesh when BJP Kalyan Singh was chief minister, which triggered one of the worst Hindu-Muslim riots in the country since its independence. Rao died in 2004 of a heart attack in New Delhi. He was cremated in Hyderabad. He was a versatile thinker with interests in a variety of subjects other than politics, such as literature and computer software, including computer programming. He spoke 17 languages. Although heavily criticized during his tenure, and even sidelined later by his own party, retrospective evaluations have been kinder, even positioning him as one of the best prime ministers of India in various polls and analyses. His achievements include steering India through the 1991 economic crisis, completing a tenure with a minority government, establishing diplomatic relations with Israel, starting India's Look East policy, rekindling India's nuclear program, defeating the 1994 United Nations resolution against India, effectively handling early life. P.V. Narasimha Rao was born on 28 June 1921 in a Telugu-speaking Neogi Brahmin family in the village of Laknapalli village of Narsampat Mandal, Warangal district of present-day Telangana, then part of Hyderabad state. Later he was adopted and brought to Vangara, a village in Bhimade Varpal Mandal of present-day Hanamkonda district in Telangana, when he was 3 years old. His father, Pamilaparthi Sitarama Rao, and mother, Pamilaparthi Rukmini Rukminamma, hailed from agrarian families. Popularly known as P.V., He completed part of his primary education in Kakuru village of Beendavarapalli Mandal in Hanakonda district by staying in his relative Gabatar Radhakishan Rao's house and studying for his bachelor's degree in the P.V. Narasimha Rao was part of Vande Mataram movement in the late 1930s in the Hyderabad state. He later went on to Hislop College, now under Nagpur University, where he completed a master's degree in law. He completed his law from Fergusson College in Pune of the University of Bombay, now Mumbai, along with his distant cousin Pamilaparthi Sadasiva Rao, Ch. Rajanarendra and Devilapalli Damodar Rao. P.V. edited a Telugu weekly magazine called Kakatiya Patrika in the 1940s. Both P.V. and Sadasiva Rao contributed articles under the pen name Jaya Vijaya. He served as the chairman of the Telugu Academy in Andhra Pradesh from 1968 to 1974. Political career. Rao was an active freedom fighter during the Indian independence movement and joined full-time politics after independence as a member of the Indian National Congress. He served as an elected representative for Andhra Pradesh State Assembly from 1957 to 1977. He served in various ministerial positions in Andhra government from 1962 to 1973. He became the Chief Minister of Andhra Pradesh in 1971 and implemented land reforms and land ceiling acts strictly. He secured reservation for lower castes in politics during his tenure. President's rule had to be imposed to counter the Jai Andhra movement during his tenure. He supported Indira Gandhi in formation of new Congress Party in 1969 by splitting the Indian National Congress. This was later regrouped as Congress I Party in 1978. He served as Member of Parliament, Lok Sabha from Andhra Pradesh districts in 1972. He rose to national prominence in 1972 for handling several diverse portfolios, most significantly home, defense and foreign affairs in the cabinets of both Indira Gandhi and Rajiv Gandhi. He served as foreign minister from 1980 to 1984 and then from 1988 to 1989. In fact, it is speculated that he was in the running for the post of India's president along with Zail Singh in 1982. Rao very nearly retired from politics in 1991. It was the assassination of the Congress president Rajiv Gandhi that persuaded him, as the Congress had won the largest number of seats in the 1991 elections. He had an opportunity to head the minority government as prime minister. He was the first person outside the Nehru-Gandhi family to serve as prime minister for 5 continuous years, the first to hail from the state of Andhra Pradesh and also the first from southern India. Since Rao had not contested the general elections, he then participated in a by-election in Nandyal to join the parliament. Rao won from Nandyal with a victory margin of a record 5,500,000 votes, and his win was recorded in the Guinness Book of World Records. Later on, in 1996, he was MP from Berhampur, Ganjam, Odisha. His cabinet included Sharad Pawar, himself a strong contender for the prime minister's post as defense minister. He also broke a convention by appointing a non-political economist and future prime minister Manmohan Singh as his finance minister. He also appointed Subramanian Swamy, an opposition party member, as the chairman of the Commission on Labor Standards and International Trade. This has been the only instance that an opposition party member was given a cabinet rank post by the ruling party. He also sent opposition leader Atal Bihari Vajpayee to represent India in a UN meeting at Geneva. Narasimha Rao fought and won elections from different parts of India such as Andhra Pradesh, Maharashtra, and Odisha. Prime Minister 1991–1996. Economic reforms adopted to avert impending 1991 economic crisis. The reforms progressed furthest in the areas of opening up to foreign investment, reforming capital markets, deregulating domestic business, and reforming the trade regime. Rao's government's goals were reducing the fiscal deficit, privatization of the public sector, and increasing investment in infrastructure. Trade reforms and changes in the regulation of foreign direct investment were introduced to open India to foreign trade while stabilizing external loans. Rao wanted I.G. Patel as his finance minister. Patel was an official who helped prepare 14 budgets, an ex-governor of Reserve Bank of India, and had headed the London School of Economics. But Patel declined. Rao then chose Manmohan Singh for the job. Manmohan Singh, an acclaimed economist, played a central role in implementing these reforms. Major reforms in India's capital markets led to an influx of foreign portfolio investment. The major economic policies adopted by Rao include abolishing in 1992 the Controller of Capital Issues, which decided the prices and number of shares that firms could issue, introducing the SEBI Act of 1992 and the Security Laws Amendment, which gave SEBI the legal authority to register and regulate all security market intermediaries, opening up in 1992 of India's equity markets to investment by foreign institutional investors, and permitting Indian firms to raise capital on international markets by issuing global depository receipts (G. Starting in 1994, of the National Stock Exchange as a computer-based trading system which served as an instrument to leverage reforms of India's other stock exchanges. The NSE emerged as India's largest exchange by 1996, reducing tariffs from an average of 85% to 25% and rolling back quantitative controls. The rupee was made convertible on trade account, encouraging foreign direct investment by increasing the maximum limit on share of foreign capital in joint ventures from 40 to 51% with 100% foreign equity permitted in priority sectors, streamlining procedures for FDI approvals, and in at least 35 industries, automatically approving projects within the limits for foreign participation. The impact of these reforms may be gauged from the fact that total foreign investment, including foreign direct investment. Rao began industrial policy reforms with the manufacturing sector. He slashed industrial licensing, leaving only 18 industries subject to licensing. Industrial regulation was rationalized. National security, foreign policy, and crisis management. Rao energized the National Nuclear Security and Ballistic Missiles Program, which ultimately resulted in the 1998 Pokhran nuclear tests. It is speculated that the tests were actually planned in 1995, during Rao's term in office, and that they were dropped under American pressure when the U.S. intelligence got the whiff of it. Another view was that he purposefully leaked the information to gain time to develop and test thermonuclear device, which was not yet ready. He increased military spending and set the Indian Army on course to fight the emerging threat of terrorism and insurgencies, as well as Pakistan and China's nuclear potentials. It was during his term that Khalistani terrorism in the Indian state of Punjab was finally defeated. Also, scenarios of aircraft hijackings which occurred during Rao's time ended without the government conceding the terrorists' demands. He also directed negotiations to secure the release of Doraiswamy, an Indian oil executive, from Kashmiri terrorists who kidnapped him, and Liviu Radu, a Romanian diplomat posted in New Delhi in October 1991, who was kidnapped by Sikh terrorists. Rao also handled the Indian response to the occupation of the Hazratbal Holy Shrine in Jammu and Kashmir by terrorists in October 1993. He brought the occupation to an end without damage to the shrine. Similarly, he dealt with the kidnapping of some foreign tourists by a terrorist group called Al-Faran in Kashmir Valley in 1995 effectively. Although he could not secure the release of the hostages, his policies ensured that the terrorists' demands were not conceded to, and that the action of the terrorists was condemned internationally, including Pakistan. Rao also made diplomatic overtures to Western Europe, the United States, and China. He decided in 1992 to bring into the open India's relations with Israel, which had been kept covertly active for a few years during his tenure as a foreign minister, and permitted Israel to open an embassy in New Delhi. He ordered the intelligence community in 1992. Rao launched the Look East foreign policy, which brought India closer to ASEAN. According to Rajol Karamlaskar, a scholar of India's foreign policy and ideologue of Rao's Congress Party, Rao initiated the Look East policy with three objectives in mind, namely, to renew political contacts with the ASEAN member nation, to increase economic interaction with Southeast Asia in trade, investment, science and technology, and to forge strategic and defense links with several countries of Southeast Asia. He decided to maintain a distance from the Dalai Lama in order to avoid aggravating Beijing's suspicions and concerns, and made successful overtures to Tehran. The Cultivate Iran policy was pushed through vigorously by him. These policies paid rich dividends for India in March 1994, when Benazir Bhutto's efforts to have a resolution passed by the UN Human Rights Commission in Geneva on the human rights situation in Jammu and Kashmir failed, with opposition by China and Iran. Rao's crisis management after 12 March 1993 Bombay bombings was highly praised. He personally visited Bombay after the blasts, and after seeing evidence of Pakistani involvement in the blasts, ordered the intelligence community to invite the intelligence agencies of the US, UK and other West European countries to send their counterterrorism experts to Bombay to examine the facts for themselves. Economic crisis and initiation of liberalization. Rao decided that India, which in 1991 was on the brink of bankruptcy, would benefit from liberalizing its economy. He appointed economist Dr. Manmohan Singh, a former governor of the Reserve Bank of India, as finance minister to accomplish his goals. This liberalization was criticized by many socialist nationalists at that time. He is often referred as father of Indian economic reforms. P.V. Narasimha Rao, the 10th Prime Minister who changed the face of the Indian economy with Rao's mandate, then Finance Minister Manmohan Singh launched a series of pro-globalization reforms, including International Monetary Fund (IMF) policies, to rescue the almost bankrupt nation from economic collapse. Father of Indian nuclear program. Kalam recalls that Rao ordered him not to test, since the election result was quite different from what he anticipated. The BJP Atal Bihari Vajpayee took over as Prime Minister on 16 May 1996. Narasimha Rao, Abdul Kalam and R. Chidambaram went to meet the new Prime Minister so that, in Kalam's telling, the smooth takeover of such a very important program can take place. Rao knew he had only one chance to test before sanctions kicked in, i.e. he could not both test conventional atomic bombs in December 1995 as well as the hydrogen bomb separately in April 1996. As Shekhar Gupta, who has had unprecedented access to Rao as well as the nuclear team, speculates, by late 1995, Rao's scientists told him that they needed 6 more months. They could test some weapons, but not others, thermonuclear, etc. So Rao began a charade of taking preliminary steps to test, without intending to test them. National elections were scheduled for May 1996, and Rao spent the next 2 months campaigning. On 8 May at 21:00, Abdul Kalam was asked to immediately meet with the Prime Minister. Rao told him, "Kalam, be ready with the Department of Atomic Energy and your team for the test, and I am going to Tirupati. You wait for my authorization to go ahead with the test. DRDO-DAE teams must be ready for action." Rao energized the National Nuclear Security and Ballistic Missiles Program. His efforts resulted in the 1998 Pokhran nuclear tests. Rao was the true father of India's nuclear program. Vajpayee said that, in May 1996, a few days after he had succeeded Rao as Prime Minister, Rao told me that the bomb was ready, I only exploded it. Samagri Tayar Hai, Rao had said, "The ingredients are ready, you can go ahead." The conventional narrative at the time was that Prime Minister Rao had wanted to test nuclear weapons in December 1995. The Americans had caught on, and Rao had dithered as was his wont. 3 years later, Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee fulfilled his party's campaign promise by ordering 5 nuclear tests below the shimmering sands of Rajasthan. Handling of separatist movements. Rao successfully decimated the Sikh separatist movement and neutralized Kashmiri separatist movement to a certain extent. It is said that Rao was solely responsible for the decision to hold elections in Punjab, no matter how narrow the electorate base would be. In dealing with Kashmir, Rao's government was highly restrained by U.S. government and its President Bill Clinton. Rao's government introduced the Terrorist and Disruptive Activities Prevention Act (TADA), India's first anti-terrorism legislation, and directed the Indian Army to eliminate the infiltrators from Pakistan. Despite a heavy and largely successful army campaign, Pakistani media accuses that the state descended into a security nightmare. Tourism and commerce were also largely disrupted. Babri mosque riots. In the late 1980s, the Bharatiya Janata Party (BJP) brought the Ram Janmabhoomi issue to the center stage of national politics, and the BJP and VHP began organizing larger protests in Ayodhya and around the country. Members of the Vishwa Hindu Parishad VHP demolished the Babri Mosque, which was constructed by Mirbaki, a general of India's first Mughal emperor, Babur, in Ayodhya on 6 December 1992. The site is believed to be the birthplace of the Hindu god Rama. The destruction of the disputed structure, which was widely reported in the international media, unleashed large-scale communal violence, the most extensive since the partition of India. Hindus and Muslims were indulged in massive rioting across the country, and almost every major city including Delhi, Mumbai, Kolkata, Ahmedabad, Hyderabad, Bhopal struggled to control the unrest. Later Liberhin Commission, after extensive hearing and investigation, exonerated P.V. Narasimha Rao. It pointed out that Rao was heading a minority government. The commission accepted the centrist submission that central forces could neither be deployed by the Union in the totality of facts and circumstances then prevailing, nor could President's rule be imposed on the basis of rumors or media reports. Taking such a step would have created bad precedent, damaging the federal structure, and would have amounted to interference in the state administration, it said. The state deliberately and consciously understated the risk to the disputed structure and general law and order. It also said that the governor's assessment of the situation was either badly flawed or overly optimistic, and was thus a major impediment for the central government. The commission further said, knowing fully well that its facetious undertakings before the Supreme Court had bought it sufficient breathing space, its state government proceeded with the planning for the destruction of the disputed structure. The Supreme Court's own observer failed to alert it to the sinister undercurrents. The governor and its intelligence agencies, charged with acting as the eyes, he said he was wary of the impact of hundreds of deaths on the nation, and it could have been far worse. And also he had to consider the scenario in which some of the troops might have turned around and joined the mobs instead. Regarding dismissal of Kalyan Singh government, he said mere dismissal does not mean you can take control. It takes a day or so appointing advisors, sending them to Lucknow, taking control of the state. Meanwhile, what had to happen would have happened, and there would have been no Kalyan Singh to blame either. Lachar earthquake. In 1993, a strong earthquake in Lachar, Maharashtra killed nearly 10,000 people and displaced hundreds of thousands. Rao was applauded by many for using modern technology and resources to organize major relief operations. Purulia arms drop case. Narasimha Rao was charged for facilitating his safe exit of accused of 1995 Purulia arms drop case, although it was never proved. Corruption charges and acquittal. In the early 1990s, one of the earliest accusations came in the form of stockbroker Harshad Mehta, who through his lawyer, Ram Jethmalani, revealed that he had paid a sum of 1 crore rupees to the then Prime Minister Rao for help in closing his cases. Rao's government faced a no-confidence motion in July 1993. because the opposition felt that it did not have sufficient numbers to prove a majority. It was alleged that Rao, through a representative, offered millions of rupees to members of the Jharkhand Mukti Morcha (JMM) and possibly a breakaway faction of the Janata Dal to vote for him during the confidence motion. Shailendra Mahato, one of those members who had accepted the bribe, turned approver. In 1996, after Rao's term in office had expired, investigations began in earnest in the case. In 2000, after years of legal proceedings, a special court convicted Rao and his colleague, Bhuta Singh, who is alleged to have escorted the MP to the Prime Minister. Rao was sentenced to 3 years in prison for corruption. I sentenced the accused PV Narasimha Rao and Bhuta Singh to rigorous imprisonment up to 3 years and a fine of 100,000 rupees $2150, the judge said in his order. Rao appealed to the Delhi High Court and remained free on bail. In 2002, the Delhi High Court overturned the lower court's decision mainly due to the doubt in credibility of Mahato's statements, which were extremely inconsistent, and both Rao and Bhuta Singh were cleared of the charges. Rao, along with fellow minister K. Turi, Chandraswamy, and K.N. Agarwal, were accused of forging documents showing that Ajay Singh had opened a bank account in the First Trust Corporation Bank in St. Kitts and deposited $21 million in it, making his father V.P. Singh its beneficiary. The alleged intent was to tarnish V.P. Singh's image. This supposedly happened in 1989. However, only after Rao's term as PM had expired in 1996 was he formally charged by the Central Bureau of Investigation (CBI) for the crime. Less than a year later, the court acquitted him due to lack of evidence linking him with the case. Lakabhai Pathak, an Indian businessman living in England, alleged that Chandraswamy and K.N. Agarwal alias Mamaji, along with Rao, cheated him out of $100,000. The amount was given for an express promise for allowing supplies of paper pulp in India, and Pathak alleged that he spent an additional $30,000 entertaining Chandraswamy and his secretary. Narasimha Rao and Chandraswamy were acquitted of the charges in 2003, and before his death, Rao was acquitted of all the cases charged against him. Later life and financial difficulties. In spite of significant achievements in a difficult situation, in the 1996 general elections the Indian electorate voted out Rao's Congress party. Soon, Sonia Gandhi's supporters forced Mr. Rao to step down as party president. He was replaced by Sitaram Kesri. Rao rarely spoke of his personal views and opinions during his 5-year tenure. After his retirement from national politics, he published a novel called The Insider. The book, which follows a man's rise through the ranks of Indian politics, resembled events from Rao's own life. According to a vernacular source, despite holding many influential posts in government, he faced many financial troubles. One of his sons was educated with the assistance of his son-in-law. He also faced trouble paying fees for a daughter who was studying medicine. According to PVRK Prasad, an Indian Administrative Service IAS officer who was Narasimha Rao's media advisor when the latter was Prime Minister, Rao asked his friends to sell away his house at Banjara Hills to clear the dues of lawyers. Death. Rao suffered a heart attack on 9 December 2004 and was taken to the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, where he died 14 days later at the age of 83. His family wanted the body cremated in Delhi. "This is his karma bhumi," Rao's son Prabhakar told Manmohan Singh. But it is alleged that Sonia Gandhi's closest aide Ahmed Patel and others ensured that the body was moved to Hyderabad. In Delhi, his body was not allowed inside Ek building. His body was kept in state at the Jubilee Hall in Hyderabad. His funeral was attended by the Prime Minister of India Manmohan Singh, the Home Affairs Minister Shivraj Patel, the Bharatiya Janata Party BJP President L.K. Advani, the Defence Minister Pranab Mukherjee, the Finance Minister P. Chidambaram, and many other dignitaries. Rao was a long-time widower, since his wife died in 1970, and he was survived by his 8 children. A memorial was built for P.V. Narasimha Rao located adjacent to Sanjeevaya Park, developed in 2005 on 1.2 hectares, 2.9 acres of land known as P.V. Jayan Bhumi. The government of Telangana declared his birthday to be celebrated as a Telangana state function in 2014. 10 years after death, P.V. Narasimha Rao gets memorial in Delhi at Ekta, which is now integrated with Rashtriya Smriti, a common place for erecting memorials for former presidents, PM, and others. The memorial is raised on a plinth in marble bearing text highlighting briefly his contributions. The plaque describes Rao, known as the Scholar Prime Minister of India. Shri P.V. Narasimha Rao was born on 28 June 1921 in Laknapalli village, Warangal district in Telangana state. He rose to prominence as freedom fighter who fought the misrule of the Nizam during the formative years of his political career. A reformer educator. Personal life. Narasimha Rao was married to Satyama Rao, who died on 1 July 1970. They had 3 sons and 5 daughters. His eldest son P.V. Ranga Rao was an education minister in Kotla Vijaya Bhaskara Reddy's cabinet and MLA from Hanamakonda Assembly constituency in Warangal district for 2 terms. His second son, P.V. Rajwar Rao, was a member of Parliament of the 11th Lok Sabha 15A 1996 4 December 1997 from Secunderabad Lok Sabha constituency. Legacy. Biographical and political evaluation. On the occasion of 25 years of economic liberalization in India, there have been several books published by authors, journalists, and civil servants evaluating Rao's contributions. While Vinay Sitapati's book Half-Lion, How P.V. Narasimha Rao Transformed India 2016 gives a renewed biographical picture of his entire life, Sanjay Baru's book 1991, How P.V. Narasimha Rao Made History 2016, and Jaram Rameshi's book From the Brink to Back, India's 1991 Story 2015 focus. Literary achievements. Rao's mother tongue was Telugu, and he had an excellent command of Marathi. In addition to 8 other Indian languages, Hindi, Oriya, Bengali, Gujarati, Kannada, Sanskrit, Tamil, and Urdu, he spoke English, French, Arabic, Spanish, German, and Persian. He was able to speak 17 languages. Due to his college education in Fergusson College in Pune, then an affiliated college of the University of Mumbai but now with Pune University, he became a very prolific reader and speaker of Marathi. He translated the great Telugu literary work Vayapadagalu of Kavi Samrat Viswanatha Satyanarayana into Hindi as Satisrafan. He also translated Hari Narayan Apt's Marathi novel Pan Lakshat Khan Gito, But Who Pays Attention, into Telugu. He was also invited to be the chief guest of Akhil Bhartiya Marathi Satya Sammelan, where he gave speech in Marathi. In his later life, he wrote his autobiography, The Insider, which depicts his experiences in politics. Sonia Gandhi praised contributions of all Congress prime ministers except P.V. Narasimha Rao in her speech. Even today, the Congress leadership shows extreme reluctance to acknowledge the role P.V. Narasimha Rao played in appointing Manmohan Singh as his finance minister and giving him the freedom to unveil the economic reforms package to bail the centenary celebrations. In June 2020, Government of Telangana, led by Telangana Rashtra Samithi, has declared to organize 1-year-long centenary celebrations of Rao. The state government also decided to set up a memorial and 5 bronze statues at various places, including Hyderabad, Warangal, Karimnagar, Vangara, and Delhi. In popular culture, in the year 2019, an independent biographical documentary film named P.V. Change with Continuity 2019 directed and produced by Esravani Katha and Srikar Reddy Gopaled and released on the streaming platform Vimeo. The documentary features rare archival footage and interviews of several distinguished people closely related to Rao's life and work. Shush Kumar appeared as Rao in the 2019 film NTR, Mahaneyakkudu, directed by Krish, which chart the life of the Indian actor-politician N.T. Rama Rao. The same year, Ajit Satpai portrayed Rao as the former Prime Minister of India in the film The Accidental Prime Minister by Vijay Gutt, about Manmohan Singh. Pradhan Mantri lit. Prime Minister, a 2013 Indian docudrama television series which aired on ABP News and covers the various policies and political tenures of Indian PM, based the 20th episode PV, Narasimha Rao and corruption charges against him on his term as the country's leader. Ravi J. Hankel portrayed the role of Rao. Awards. Rao was awarded the Pratap Murthy Lifetime Achievement Award. Many people across the party line supported the name of P.V. Narasimha Rao for Bharat Ratna. Telangana Chief Minister K. Chandrasekhar Rao supported the move to give Bharat Ratna to Rao. BJP leader Subramanian Swamy supported the move to give Bharat Ratna to Rao. According to Sanjay Baru, PM Manmohan Singh wanted to give Bharat Ratna to Rao during his tenure. In September 2020, Telangana Legislative Assembly adopted a resolution seeking to confer Bharat Ratna on Rao. The resolution also requested the central government to rename the University of Hyderabad after him.